you probably overestimate what you can achieve in a day, but underestimate what you can achieve in a decade. And I think that's where we're going with your financial life. It's like, well, let's start with the end in mind. So setting some just broad brush goals, like when roughly do you want to retire? What's your housing goals going to be? Like, are there going to be a couple of jumps up the ladder, or are you already there and it's just important that you pay your mortgage down? So I like to break it down with clients into 3 sections to think about. So one is career, like the thing that's going to drive this goal. Are there some big changes that you need to make in your career to make the other side balance, which is I usually set them out as property goals, fun, like holidays, and then personal goals. And that can mean like family or just standard of living that you want. And then I break them down into 5-year chunks with clients. So you've almost just got a sheet of paper with little boxes in, and you want to fill it out around the next 5 years, which usually are quite easy to fill out. Where do I want to live in 5 years' time? What will my personal life look like in 5 years' time? And what good stories am I going to have to be able to tell because of the holidays I took? Or, I don't know, just the things that you did that are really important to you. And they're usually quite easy to fill out. The longer term ones are sometimes the ones that depress me, because if I say to the client, when do you want to retire? And it almost breaks my heart when they say, well, the state retirement age is 67, isn't it? Well, they usually say 65, but it's 67. And my dad retired at 65, so I guess 65.
It's like they're being told when they want to.
Yeah, I just feel that's like really sad. If you're going to make financial moves this year, they've got to be motivating. They've got to have a reason why. It's like, I want to retire at 60 because I want to do X, Y, and Z before I'm 65. And I know by that time my kids will be at uni. So if I'm traveling the world, they can come and visit me on their holidays. Sounds much more exciting than, I think that's when my dad retired. So I think when you're planning those long-term goals, you've got to almost tune into the younger you. And I always think this, that I get quite sad about my own ambition in a way, because where I live, it's near to a really posh part of Wimbledon, right on the Common. When I was 21 working at Wimbledon Tennis and earning like, I don't know, £5 an hour, whatever the minimum wage was at that time, we used to walk past these ginormous houses and be like, one day I'll have one of those. And I notice now when I walk past those houses, my internal dialogue is, they're really lucky. And it just is a real big shift. I noticed that when I was young, I had so much more ambition and ability to think big than perhaps I do now naturally. So I always try and tune into my 21-year-old self. What would she really have wanted out of these long-term goals? Because I think it's good to dream big and to have a big direction.
So I've like done this maybe unintentionally, but I've always felt that in my 20s, I was like shackled to the UK for a few reasons. Things I wouldn't change, but it meant that I couldn't do what many other people did, was go and see the world, travel as much as I would have liked to. Mm-hmm. And that kind of hung over me. But now my goals are, when I get to say 40, 50, I want enough money that for 6 months of the year, I can just go and live in another place, get an Airbnb and live there, fly my family out and spend time with me. And like you say, now it's that like, it was ambition then, it turned to kind of almost disappointment in myself. Yeah. But actually now it's re-energized me, that ambition, rather than just, I want loads of money so I don't need to work. Because actually I've learned that I'll probably always work in some kind of way.
What would you, I mean, I need a hobby. That's probably got to be one of my goals. If I stop working, what would I actually do?
Stop staring at the people in Wimbledon's house. And like, she's back in the Common again. She said, like, fuck you. Throwing tennis balls at the windows. Yeah.
So I think it's daring yourself to be ambitious and perhaps useful in your thought process about what it is that you actually want to achieve. If you could design your life in any which way, what would it really look like? And then start to fill out those short, medium, long-term goals: career, property, personal, family, sort of fun. as another one.
Yeah. And are you applying a number to those goals?
Yeah. So not when you're thinking about them. Don't let those dreams filter through your number filter, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
That's really,
That's
I'm not going to
realistic.
put that down because it's not realistic. Still remembering you're probably underestimating what you can achieve in a decade if you put your mind to it. So yeah, do an unfiltered version. And then I think, like, do you notice how when you speak to different people, the realists, which I'm related to quite a lot of realists, or that friend who's just sold their business for $1 million, that your mindset changes with who you're sat with. And so get that friend who has got that positive mindset and maybe just think about it together, really bounce off each other and dare to dream, I suppose, when you set those goals.
So I've been speaking to a lot of entrepreneurs through this podcast and through my channel, people that I would never have had access to. And I come from a world of like, work hard, get a job, work in an office. And a lot of these entrepreneurs like Timothy Armu and people we've had on the podcast, they have this attitude of like, I can make all the money in the world. I don't need to, like, if I could go back, I probably wouldn't have even saved any money because I would have just invested in myself and my skill set and things like this. And I'm not saying people do that, but like you say, there are different perspectives. And when you gain access to them, they kind of make you realize that the things are possible that you wouldn't normally think are possible.
Yeah, exactly. So I suppose tip number 1 therefore is make your goals exciting and personal to you to start with.
What have you got to? This guy's goals are already
it's just weird you say that you go back to your younger self, because like my whole life I've just always traveled. So I assumed my life was just going to be like that forever, like every 2 months go on holiday. But then now I've got a kid and I'm
You've got to pay for it.
And I'm like, you can't just leave the country for like 2 weeks or a month. Now you've got a kid. Yeah. So it's kind of, I want to get back to that traveling all the time, but now I've got to take him with me. So I need to reassess how I'm going to do that.
You could see it as well, when they're 5 we're screwed. I'm not going on all these holidays because they'll be at school. But maybe it's, well, I'm going to design my life so that I can take a month off in the summer holidays. We can go away in the Easter holidays and maybe a week at Christmas, whatever. So it's making the opportunity out of the new situation.
When I was younger, I thought I was going to retire at 40. And I say younger, I mean like 3 years ago.
Yeah.
I generally thought
yesterday.
until this podcast started, I thought I was going to retire at 40. But I realized, wait, I should probably sort out my pension and like some savings and not just rely all on like risky investments. I'll always work, but I do want to retire and just kind of do my own thing younger.
I've seen the rise in this FIRE movement, which is like the financial independence, retire early. And then over time, that's kind of really just evolved to just FI, which is like financial independence. Do you think that should be a goal for people?
I really think it should be, because there's different definitions of it. Like, I had a client who hated his job and we did his cash flow model. And I said, if you could be happy with X per year, which was less than he ideally wanted, I was like, just leave tomorrow. He was like, what?
You've got enough.
You've got enough for a decent standard of living, not what you were aiming for, but just leave tomorrow if it makes you that sad. And it just, that little mindset change meant that he wasn't scared of his boss because he knew he could just be like, sod this, I'm off. But also it meant that he stayed and he enjoyed it. And he probably worked a couple more years, just happy in the knowledge that if he ever wanted to, he could walk away. So I think knowing your numbers really can help empower you and empower you to make those decisions that ultimately money needs to make you happy.
If you want more information on how to sort your financial life out, then just click here to watch the full interview with Lisa Conway Hughes.